This is a video. It is an op-ed. I'm going to share some opinion, and I'm going to editorialize on some topics here. There are basically four topics that I want to hit, and let's get started. So the first one has to do with wargaming in the military, and so for me that is the U.S. military. And here I am talking broadly, really all types of wargaming, from the simplest tabletop paper manual war games to computer unit level war games, all the way to contractor provided and executed large scale war games. So the whole gamut. The place of wargaming in the U.S. military, the role and the significance of wargaming in the U.S. military. So, first of all, I am one of those who is for it. I am for increasing the role and importance of wargaming in the professional development of officers and leaders. However, it's also important to me that it's done right, and so nothing more on doing it right, but if done right, I am one of those who is for expanding and increasing the role of wargaming in the U.S. military. Now, having said that, the theme of this op-ed is that we're getting nowhere, and we are getting nowhere on this agenda. And furthermore, this is not, I guess one might think that I'm going to say, the military is closed-minded, the military is throwing up roadblocks, something about the bureaucracy, institutionalization, whatever, of the U.S. military is inhibiting the agenda of expanding the role of wargaming. That's not what I'm going to say at all. As a matter of fact, my opinion is, after 17 plus years in the Army, most of it in the infantry, most of that time in the light infantry, no, my op-ed here is that those of us who would like to see wargaming, integrated into the U.S. military more, taken more seriously, etc., etc., we are our own worst enemy on this. We are our own worst enemy on this. We get in our way. We do not sell the idea well. We do not sell it correctly. And that much what I just said, well, let me add one more piece to it. We have, and this is my experience, and so this is my op-ed, we have the wrong people selling the agenda to key leaders. So if we want to see wargaming taken more seriously and institutionalized in the U.S. military, we have to sell that agenda to certain key leaders. And when we sell the agenda to those certain key leaders, it has to be the right people selling that agenda. Again, my experience is we have the wrong people selling the agenda, the agenda is not sold to the right key leaders. It's just a uncoordinated. It's a bad effort. And so my again, my op-ed is we're not getting anywhere. And again, it's we have ourselves to blame for this. So there is nothing inherent in war games there's nothing inherent in war games or war gaming that prevents the military from taking this seriously. Not at all. On the one hand. On the other hand, again, the military has to be convinced that it's something worthwhile to invest in, considering that there are always many different and other priorities. And so that, again, goes to properly selling the idea. And then I'll go back yet again that certain key leaders in the right positions have to be sold on this, brought on board, convinced of the importance, the relevance of expanding the roles of war games and war gaming. And right now, again, as an op-ed, I'm not at all optimistic on this. Now, it's nice to read and hear from time to time small, and frankly, what I consider to be really small and really of small significance, so-called bright news stories about how some, institution here or there, did this or that with wargaming. All those good news stories, I don't know, they make for a good moment, a good feeling moment, but none of that is relevant. None of that is significant. That is not achieving anything in the area of truly integrating war games and wargaming into the professional United States military. When it comes to the real evidence, the real battleground, so to speak, when you're talking budgets, you're talking, again, key leader agendas, you're talking, doctrine and policy, we're nowhere in those areas. I mean, we've made no progress in those areas, and that's where it matters. So that's that. Though there will be a little bit of maybe we're going through a small period of, again, some passing and fleeting toying with ideas related to wargaming and the professional military, but we're not really making any progress. Now, I'm keeping this at the op-ed level, but I'm motivated to talk about this now because, I just recently saw an attempt by, and I'm going to stay very broad and no specifics here because of the nature of what I'm talking about. These are closed door meetings involving people whose identity I'm not going to reveal, but I saw not only a key leader in the U.S. military, probably one of the most key individual leaders who could control this agenda, who could make real change in this area. I sat there and I watched as the agenda was brought up and talked about. The agenda, again, being really expanding the role and the profile of wargaming at our highest level of military education, our war colleges, our highest level of officer education institutions, again, the war colleges, and again, my op-ed, I watched the wrong people, poorly pitch the idea, and I watched it just go down in flames. So, and this recent experience just caps off, again, 17 plus years of seeing this, again, the wrong people well, I guess pushing the idea. If, again, at op-ed level only, if I were king for a day, I would sideline the people who I've watched push the idea because they're the wrong people, sideline them, and get the right people in there to properly push the agenda. And yes, the right people I'm talking about are the people with the credentials, the people who have the ear of the key leaders that you need to convince to make any real change, lasting change. So anyways, op-ed done on that topic. All right, next topic. When I think of the few areas in the last few years that I've been, really digging into wargaming, when I think of the areas that I seem to have, I guess, contrary opinions about, for example, modeling morale. This is nothing new. I've talked about this in some video chats and stuff, but when it comes to morale, for example, there are a few others. Leadership. Where my views seem to, I guess, go contrary to the, to the typical and I guess accepted direction. Anyways, it's not important. The individual, I'm not being specific because those specific topics don't matter. What I figured out recently, and again, this is op-ed, behind these things, so I think modeling morale is modeled pretty much horribly at the small unit combat action level. Leadership is modeled wrong, but what I realize now, I think this is an idea. I think the theme running through these problems that I have with kind of the wargaming, the accepted wargaming paradigm, seems to be misplaced mechanics for scale and scope. So to put it really bluntly, the modeling of morale at battalion, regiment, and even division level scale, unit scale, the mechanics for, again, covering morale of units of those sizes, which is okay, those mechanics, I see picked up and dropped into an entirely different scale and scope. And that's where problems arise, because they're not the same at these different levels. So the problem now that I see is not the particular, poor modeling of morale and leadership and some other things, but the misapplication of rules mechanics from one scale and scope to another. And that's now what I key in on when I see something that just doesn't sit right. Like morale, so again, op-ed level, morale in a lot of mainstream, hugely influential squad level games is completely wrong. It does not sit right. And why does it not sit right? It doesn't sit right because that is not morale at the squad level. That's not morale at the half squad level. So yeah, it's and so all I will be, expanding this and elaborating on this over time. But yeah, and this isn't to like level criticisms against any particular game, even any particular, rules design, mechanic, whatever. But the problem as I see it now is a broader problem, a lot more widespread problem of misapplying mechanics for the scale and scope. in question. All right, so the third topic. Third topic, this is a bit of a biggie too, I think. From my reading online, following discussions, different websites, different gaming communities, some online chat, the whole idea, here, let me paint you the idea. Players want to be put in the boots of the commander. Players want to be put in the boots of the commander. A war game should put the players in the boots of the commanders, and designers should design games that put players in the boots of the commanders of whatever battle or conflict situation. My assertion is this is an incredibly widespread, widely accepted perspective, approach, whatever you want to call it. And I'll tell you, I'll have none of this. I will have none of this. So I figured out after a few years of gaming here that I don't care one bit about being put in the boots of a commander, which is interesting because I've been a commander. Maybe that's why I never even think twice that a game is going to put me in the boots of a commander. Would never even think twice about this idea. That's not what I'm looking for at all. And so before I get back to this concept of being put in the boots of a commander, let me first of all say that I figured out my perspective, my approach. And it probably comes from the fact that I look at war games as simulations first and games second. And when I look at war games as simulations, I just see myself as the simulator. I just see myself as using the tool. A war game is a simulation. Simulation is an elaborate type of tool, and I'm just using the tool. So the idea for me, to borrow a literary term, is that when I approach war games, I'm approaching war games as or from the perspective of the third person omniscient. Third person omniscient. I don't have any interest in any first person perspective, which colors how I talk about games, how I approach games. I just, again, I wouldn't even think twice about thinking that a war game is going to give me Wellington's perspective or Ney's perspective. Wouldn't even think twice about that. Now, this is what I op-ed. At the op-ed level, when I see a lot of war gamers commenting, either just commenting or commenting in, discussion threads, the idea that I want this game again to put me in the boots of the commander. That's why I play war games. That's why I played this particular war game. That's why I like playing this particular war game. And this is sometimes paired with the idea of the idea of I don't want rules that get in the way of me being able to concentrate on tactics and strategy or whatever. Basically, the idea is I'm playing the war game. I want to be put in the boots of the commander, and I don't want stuff that gets in the way of that. And then there are other ways to put that, other twists on that idea, but the interesting thing for me is that, and when I look at these comments, again, op-ed level, I don't buy this at all. I don't buy this at all. Okay, back up. I don't buy it. The mentality behind this is supposed to be the person wants to be the commander, but what I see really is a mentality of I want to tell people what to do, as if that's a commander. That's not a commander, by the way. But the mentality I see is I want to just tell people what to do, and in game terms, that is I want to push my cardboard pieces around. I want to push my units around. Which again goes to I don't want to be bogged down in detail. I don't want to have to plan. I don't want to have to do whatever I don't want to do. I just want to be able to be the commander, which is supposedly portrayed as, making the tactical and strategic decisions, I guess. None of that is even real. None of that even corresponds to anything in reality. That's not what being a commander is. That's just a marketing gimmick that's what a commander is, and that's what Ney and Wellington were doing. It doesn't work. I don't accept it. If you really want the experience of a commander, you basically have to go to role playing. If what you really want to do is you want to push your cardboard units around on the map, that's great, but you're just a game player. You're not a commander. You're just a game player. I don't even go down that route. I'm looking at war games as simulation. I'm using the simulation to look for some insights. I'm interested in what the tool produces. And that's that. The fourth point and last point has to do with detail, level of detail, has to do with abstraction, higher and lower levels of abstraction, and has to do with complexity and simplicity and simulation versus game. So this comes about from discussions that I have followed, from time to time over in the miniatures page, primarily under the design section. And again, the mentality that I kind of, tried to make a composite of. Okay, so a composite of the mentality that I've seen in these various discussions goes something like this. When it comes to war game design, if something can be abstracted, it should be abstracted. That's exactly what I mean. If something can be abstracted, it should be abstracted. This is a mentality that I think I've seen kind of between the lines in some commentary, in some discussions online. The idea here is going for elegance. Basically game design should simplify. Game design should pursue abstraction. Why? Because, I guess that's the idea of what people call, elegant design, elegant rules. And there's some interesting analysis when you break down the actual meaning of elegance. Now, complexity and simplicity. All right, bottom line. I already had a more complex discussion earlier, so I can distill this now. War is complex. If you go right back to Clausewitz talks about the complex. He doesn't use the word complex and complexity, per se, but he is definitely talking about the complexity of war, the nature of war. And it's interesting assertion. This is my assertion. It's my op-ed. Nowhere, as I recall, does Clausewitz ever talk about, complexity is overcome by simplicity. I imagine, again, my opinion, Clausewitz would be horrified to think or to have his writings interpreted that the complexity of warfare needs to be simplified. Okay. Again, this goes back to design, players pursuing simplified designs. No, Clausewitz talks about the complexity of war, and that is overcome by his concept of genius. And it would be nice if the Clausewitzian concept of genius could be basically designed into a war game. I don't know, pure speculation off the top of my head there. I already talked before about I am looking for simulation before game. For those who value balance and elegance and even simplicity, I think that the way to go is abstract games. But not, in my opinion, war games. War games should speak to the complexity of war. Now, of course, when I say war games should speak to the complexity of war, it's not the same thing as saying war games should express should aspire to the level of detail of real war. That, of course, quickly could become, quickly will become unwieldy. But conveying the complexity, yes. Basically, a war game that conveys war as simple, something's wrong there. Something's wrong there, because that should not be. I don't know what one would be portraying if they portrayed war as simple. I'm searching my mind. I don't see what that could be. Again, if it's a purely abstract form of war, then we're back to an abstract game, which is perfectly fine, and it's actually good, again, if you're after perfect balance, high degree of elegance, and possibly even simplicity. So those are our 4 topics. I have sketched them out. They are all purely op-ed. They're presented as, opinion, editorial. They are 4 ideas that I've been kicking around, in some cases for months now. I didn't know how, I didn't know how exactly to get them recorded. And this is, I believe, the 7th or 8th try at this. I'll tell you right now, if this is my 8th try at this, the first 7 I was really not happy with. And I can already tell I'm not that happy with this one either. But it is what it is. I'm laying down one, piece of the foundation, and hopefully I will be able to expand on this as I move forward. So that is enough on this general monologue for now.